What is going on, everybody? This is Rick Del Santo, the Pro Wrestling Wire podcast. I have a very special guest here today, Vladimir Koloff. The original Vladimir Koloff, I might add, by the way. Welcome, sir, to the show.
Absolutely. How are you, Rick? Good evening.
I am great, and I'm glad to have you here. Finally getting this done. It's took a little while, actually. So I'm glad to actually be sitting here with you.
Well, it's my pleasure after a few days or a week or so of trying to schedule this and get it planned to where my participation can be worked out. I'm sorry for the delays, but nevertheless, here we are.
Yeah, it wasn't just you. I got sick as well, so we got through it though.
Well, I expect Commodore Koloff expect that from American wuss.
There you go. You still got it. Let's talk
about
your
no, I don't.
career.
It's gone.
Let's talk about your career. You did something. You were very big into amateur wrestling as a youngster as well. Did you play other sports as well?
Yeah, I did the whole. As growing up, I did the whole gamut of Midwestern sport. I grew up in Central Indiana, and obviously wrestling. I started in third grade in a club out of a necessity to defend myself from the onslaught of daily attacks from my older brother when he would come home from middle school wrestling practice. So my mother instinctively enrolled me in a club, but she didn't know that by the time I was in 8th grade and he was a senior, I was whipping his ass. But I played baseball at a high level, ran track and field, at not only field events, but sprinting events at a high level. And I also played football and baseball. I think I said baseball already. But I did it, and I ran cross country for a little bit as well. But no, I did everything. So,
yeah, and you were quite the exceptional amateur wrestler as well, and on the competitive level.
I appreciate that. Yes, I was an Indiana state champion in middle school. I was a national place winner in middle school. I was a national place winner, 2-time national runner-up in high school. I was a multiple All-American in high school in wrestling. I participated, excuse me, on the United States Sports Festival team, which the name morphed into the United States Olympic Festival, which was an event of games like a small Olympics, but for the U.S. And I think there were 32 sports involved, and it was all over the U.S. every year. The first year I competed was in Syracuse, New York, and the second year I competed was in Indianapolis, Indiana. And the wrestling was freestyle and Greco, and I qualified through the nationals into the Greco-Roman competition, and it was made up of the 4 best Greco wrestlers and freestyle wrestlers in each of the 10 weight classes. And we trained in Lincoln, Nebraska, and then we went on to Syracuse or to Indianapolis and competed. And then after that competition, we had the option to stay in training in Colorado Springs at the United States Olympic Training Center in what was called the Olympic 200 developmental program for high school wrestlers to develop into Olympic caliber representatives for the U.S. if you could qualify when you became older. And so I did that, and then I was twice on the national on the age groups back then. They had a name assigned to each age group, and the age group that I was in was elite, and that did not mean that everybody was elite in scope. It just meant that was the age group. and it was
Mhm.
16-18, and I made the elite United States national team twice. And the first year we were in Budapest, Hungary, and the second year we were in Bucharest, Romania, and we wrestled not only the Romanians but three other national teams. And then in Hungary we wrestled the Hungarians and three other national teams. So I did that, and that was my international competitions, as well as a few in the United States. But then very proficient in high school as well, three-time All-State, um, once state runner-up, always a state place winner in high school, et cetera, et cetera. Multiple Division I scholarship offers, um, out of several personal and family related issues, opted out of D1 wrestling, and just took another path. So yes, that was my amateur career.
Wow, it's I'm kind of left speechless. All those accolades
Hey,
that you.
no. Listen, I was nowhere near um, a Brad Rangens. I was nowhere near a Kurt Angle from Clarion State. I
Right.
was nowhere near a Scott Recksteiner or Bob Recksteiner of the University of Michigan, who were just a little bit older than me. Rangens was much older than me. Obviously, Angle was much younger than me. Bobby Lashley, much younger than me. Sheldon Benjamin, a lot younger than me, et cetera, et cetera. But you know, I was okay. So
Uh, how did you get interested in the world of professional wrestling?
as an amateur, I it wasn't a disdain for the business. I
Hmm.
just, as an amateur, it's always like you, you you were taught that it was a work, and if you really wanted to do something, go on the mat and see who could pin the other guy the fastest, or each other the fastest, or what have you. But I never really had a a a desire to turn pro, other than when I'd gotten out of college and I was working the so-called 9 to 5, which was really not. It was a it was a continuous business working deal that I was all over the world working, but by out of coincidence, I had sat next to Ivan Koloff, the man who became my uncle later in years. I sat next to Ivan coming back to from Kempo, Korea to Narita, Tokyo, Narita, Tokyo to LAX, Los Angeles, LAX to Charlotte. And I sat next to Ivan coincidentally in every one of those legs. So
Hmm.
I had, even when we changed planes in Narita and even when we changed planes in LAX, um, we were seated next to each other. And so I had his ear, and it was fascinating talking to him. And I later found out that he was fascinated by my career as an amateur and things that I had done in my life up to that point. Um, one of which um, later became, or one of which prior to that was that I had sold, or excuse me, that I raised registered Texas Longhorn cattle, and I had subsequently sold a number of cows, female cattle, a number of cows, and a couple of their calves, and a young bull to a gentleman who became a very, very, very dear friend of mine, professional wrestling legend, Andre the Giant Rusumov. Andre's farm was about 3 hours from me, 2.5, 3 hours from me,
Mhm.
southeast of me. And he and Frenchie and Jackie were the trusted confidants of Andre's that took care of his home, his beautiful Frank Lloyd Wright architecture type, what we called the treehouse, because there was actually a tree growing in the middle of it. I don't know if you can see the background of my big den here. There's a ceiling fan there, and
Yep.
then there's one way back in the back with a light on by my fireplace, and then there's one right up there.
Yep.
And so, like right in the middle of this room, which Andre's was like 20 feet tall, there was a place in the ground, and there was a tree growing up through it. So they called it the tree house, but nevertheless. So Andre and Frenchie and Jackie and Andre came up here in '87 and bought cattle, and my family, we never made a fuss over Andre, because we wanted him. We never asked for anything. We never asked for a shirt, a T-shirt, an autograph, nothing, a photograph. Now there is a photo here in the house somewhere that my mom had, and she's 5'2", standing next to Andre out in the driveway. They had a red and silver high top. I think it was a high top Econoline Ford van, and that's what they traveled in. But there's a photograph of my mom and Andre, and I think that was the only photo that we had ever taken with him, because we didn't want him to feel that we were overwhelmed or enamored with his profession and the name. We wanted him to know that we were sincere and genuine as to him being a man that was interested in my cattle.
Right.
So we developed a friendship. So when I got out, so back to your original question, when I decided I was going to leave the corporate sector, which I despised, I despised the 9 to 5. I despised doing things, and some superior of mine who was inferior in scope would get the credit, and I went for my work. I said, well, I'm going to get out, and I'm going to use my athletic ability to make a living. And like I said, in elementary school, middle school, high school, and college, I was a tremendous athlete. I just saw today at the local Wally World, I saw my high school assistant principal, who was instrumental in keeping me out of trouble. We were talking to, I was talking to the store manager at Wally World, who's a dear friend of mine. And my high school assistant principal he said to the store manager, he said, I don't know if you knew, but when Carl was in school, he didn't play football, but he was so fast and big and lanky and racy, so to speak, body wise, that I even had Division I scholarship offers for football, and I only had played football when I was a freshman.
Hmm.
So it was just based on the athletic ability. But so based on the athletic ability, I said, I'm going to make some money with my athletic skills and talents. So I called Andre, or I called Andre's phone number, which I had kept, or which I had from the cattle. And I asked French if I could talk to him. And he said, well, he's gone. He won't be home for 8-10 weeks, something like that. And I'm like, man, I can't wait that long. And so I told Frenchie what my plans were, what I wanted to do. And Frenchie said, now Frenchie, I don't know if you know who Frenchie was, but he was not an icon, but he was a very distinctive figure in Andre's protecting Andre. And he was a referee down in Florida. And there's a lot of stories of his toughness, even though Frenchie was a very slight man. But so Frenchie said, well, he won't be home, blah, blah, blah. And so I told Frenchie what I wanted to do and blah, blah, blah. And so I told him that I knew Ivan kind of in passing from the airline flights from Korea to Charlotte, blah, blah, blah. And Frenchie said, well, just call Ivan and see what he can do. So I called Ivan and I told him, I said who I was and blah, blah, blah. And And he said, "Oh yes, I remember you. You're the shooter. That's Andre's friend." And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Well, come down to our camp. I've got a camp on the east side of Charlotte, in Indian Trails, near where he lived in Mint Hill at the time." And I went in there on a Saturday morning. I had already back in the summer. I had shaved my head, as I did most summers, just because it was so damn hot here in the Carolinas, and working on the farm. And I had kind of grown a halfway beard, or goatee type facial thing. And I walked into the camp, and all the boys that were in the ring, there were 6, 7, 8 boys in the ring, and Ivan, they all turned and looked, and they said, "Oh my God, you look like Nikita, big time." Now this was in 90, I think it was. So that's 25, 35 years ago, where we're sitting. Um, yeah, about 35 years ago. So, I was much leaner, not not gray and white as I am now in the beard. Um, and so Ivan was like, "Holy smokes!" And he said, "Well, let's do a tryout." And I had been at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs with many of the greats of the U.S. Olympic wrestling scene, and I thought, well, this tryout can't be that hard. And excuse me, it was just some Hindu squats and some push-ups and et cetera, et cetera. And so I paid my tuition, and I started training. Well, then about 4 or 5 days later, there was about a 6'1" or 6 foot, yeah, about 6'1", 240 pound, curly blonde hair, long blonde hair guy in the ring that was helping Ivan train. And that was Jackie Fulton, of subsequently of the Fantastics. And Jackie and I hit it off immediately. But about, I don't know, 5, 6 days later, his brother, Bobby Fulton, of the original Fantastics with Tommy Rogers, showed up, and he was actually Ivan's partner in the wrestling school there on the east side of Charlotte. And so when he came into the building and saw me in the ring, obviously Ivan had smartened him up to what was going on, that I had come there and blah, blah, blah. Bobby comes in, and first thing he said was, "Oh my God, it's Carl Koloff," pointing at me up in the ring. And I'm thinking, Carl Koloff, Carl's a German name of origin, and it just doesn't go with Koloff, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't think anything of it. And so then later that day, Ivan came to me and said, "We want to make you a Koloff." Ivan came to me and said, "We want to make you a Koloff." So I'm like, "All right." And he said, "We want you to pick a first name." Oh, I said, no, I'm sorry. I said, "I'm not really thrilled about Carl as my gimmick name. Because that's my given name." And so he said, "Well, you come up with something." So, I just kind of remembered, the teachings of world history, and Nikita Khrushchev was the premier of the Soviet Union, and Nikita Koloff was already established as a superstar with Jim Crockett Promotions. And then I thought, well, who was the father of communism? It was Lenin, and it was Trotsky. And I thought, well, I'll take Vladimir Lenin, and I'll use Vladimir, because Ivan was after Ivan the Terrible, or Ivan the Great, or whatever. So that's how I got Vladimir, and then that's how I turned. It was just, I wanted to become pro to make money. I couldn't get Andre to train me because he was still overseas. And if Andre had trained me, I don't know that I would ever become a Koloff.
Right.
So it was like I diverted each step of the way. And so I can't, I got the Ivan, and then I became a Koloff, and I've had my head shaved since 1990 and had some form of this goatee since 90, and wrestled all over the world. I mean, everywhere.
Yeah, I see that. I see that. So in 1990, I'd have to say, did Ivan bring you to directly to South Atlantic Pro, or was there any steps
Yeah,
in
well,
between?
South Atlantic. It was South Atlantic. I think it was NAWA, or maybe it
Right.
was South Atlantic, but it was one of the two. That
NAWA first, then it turned to South Atlantic.
hold on, I got a
Sure.
decline. That was a chicken buddy of mine. Oh, and by the way, yeah, I raise chickens. Everybody knows I raise chickens. Show chickens, not fighting chickens. Show chickens. So, nevertheless, yeah. So it was NAWA first, and I can't remember the guys' names. There were two guys that ran that promotion, and I do remember they had a gym, a training facility, a workout gym, a weight gym on
Mhm.
the east side off of Independence Boulevard near a strip mall. And I can't remember where it was, but the thing that stood out to me was they had a ring, as a lot of gyms had rings in them all over, but this ring was set up in the deep end of an Olympic sized pool that was drained. So the ring was in the pool. And then, so Ivan took me into South Atlantic, or we did some indies. Sorry. Um, so we did some other independents. My first match was in the Greenville Coliseum against Rock and Roll Express. Like 7-8 days after I started training, and believe me, Ricky and Robert were like, "Is he going to tear our heads off?" And I was like, "Just lead him. He'll listen." And that's all I did. I mean, it was crazy. But so yeah, I guess the first territory was South Atlantic. The first TV was South Atlantic, and that was run by a guy.
At the time, Jones, not the
Say
wrestler Paul.
again?
At the time, it was Paul Jones, not the. It
No,
was. Yep.
no. Paul had stepped out by then.
Okay.
I think Paul was in AWA with those two guys that had the gym, and I can't remember their names. I think, and then it was a guy by the name of Greg Price.
Was he the final owner, Greg Price?
As far as, well, he was the owner when, after we left there and moved
Okay.
on. Maybe I think he was the final owner. I'm not 100% sure.
Right. Okay.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure of the timeline, and I'm not sure of the finality of ownership.
Right. I believe that he was the final owner from research and stuff that I've done over the years. But you've had some. You were there for a little while with Ivan. You got to meet some or wrestle some guys. Excuse me.
Oh,
One of them.
I tagged with Ivan for 10 years, easy.
Yeah.
I've wrestled the Road Warriors, Animal and Hawk, Joe and Mike. Wrestled Warlord and Barbarian. Wrestled Kerry Von Erich, Wahoo McDaniels, Jake the Snake Roberts, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Terry Funk, Chris Benoit, Bam Bam Bigelow, Jimmy Superfly Snuka. I will continuously think of names. Brutus the Barber Beefcake, Steve Kern as Doink, Stan Lane as the Fabulous Ones, and as Midnight Express. Opposite sides of the ring with Cornette managing Lane. The Fantastics. I'm just drawing a blank. Andre, Ronnie Garvin, Jimmy Garvin, Kerry. I think I said Kerry already. Lance Von Erich, Dusty Wolf, who was the as they call him now, talent enhancement for WWF.
Oh, yeah.
I called Dusty the journeyman of pro wrestling. He was an incredible worker. Yep. With incredible knowledge. Did a lot of overseas stuff with him. Wrestled Rick Santana, Vic Steamboat, Rip Rogers, Kamala, the Uganda, Sugar Bear Harris. Um, Let me think, who else? Demolition Axe. Never wrestled Darso, never wrestled Smash, but I'll see. Funny thing, I will see. Today is Tuesday. Day after tomorrow is Thanksgiving, and then on Friday, I'm sorry, on Saturday of this week, I will see for the first time in my career, I will see Demolition Smash Barry Darso, Crusher Khrushchev, who is actually in the slot with Ivan and Nikita that I kind of filled after Nikita had split and Ivan had gotten released from Crockett, and Nikita stayed with Crockett through the subsequent buyout or taking over by Turner Broadcasting. And right. So then, so I was the next nephew to Ivan, and Crusher had gone up obviously to work in the New York territory as Smash. I'm just trying to think of more names Cowboy Bob Orton, Chuck Palumbo, I think it was, or Columbo, Chuck Palumbo.
Chuck Palumbo from WCW.
Yeah. Worked with all the ECW guys. I had an ECW world title match against Tito Santana. Did it? He went over on me. I'm not going to say I did a job because it wasn't a squash. We had a legitimate, great match. He led me, and I was green, but he led me, and it was an ECW World Championship title bout. The head hunters. I worked with Alpha. I worked with Fatu and Samu, the head shrinkers. Loved working with those guys. Everybody's like, yeah, there's Fatu and Vladimir, two of the stiffest guys in the business, evidently. I don't know. Let me think, who else did I work? Greg the Hammer Valentine, great guy. Yeah. I'm just drawing a blank. I mean, there's it was so long and so many different places. Ian and Axel Rotten.
Yeah, I saw that you went to IWA Mid-South, which I believe is that's Ian Rotten's company promotion.
Yeah.
And I thought it was kind of bizarre because they do mostly like hardcore deathmatch type stuff. But I guess I wouldn't put that past you after watching some of the stuff that you and Ivan against the Headhunters recently tearing it up in Japan.
We tore it up in Japan with them in the previous promotion you mentioned, as well as in ECW. And if I worked for Ian or Axel Rotten, they just said go out there and tear the place down.
Yeah.
Hell, I went out there. I tore down a 12-foot wide, 20-foot tall roll-up door one night. Pulled it off the hinges. I mean, and Dory's yelling at me the whole time. And I knew what I was doing. It's just like tearing a barn down or something. I'm just over there just beating the door to death with a guy, and I tore it down, and they're like, "Oh my God!" I worked for Ted and Jerry Oates down in Pensacola one time. I think it was Pensacola, and Sika was on it, and that's where I first met Joseph, who later became Roman Reigns, and Joey was just a little bitty kid. I worked with the Rock in Fayetteville one time when he first started out. We didn't work together. We were on the same card. So yeah, I mean, a lot of big names. Oh, Blackjack Mulligan. He actually power slammed me, and we were in Charleston, South Carolina. He power slammed me, and the ring collapsed.
Jimmy Valiant, Boogie Woogie, man.
Legendary Boogie Woogie. Wait a minute, baby. Hang on.
What are you doing around?
What was that calling you, buddy?
This is our neighborhood.
You done made a mistake.
You should be retired, Boogie.
Wait a minute, boys. Let me take a bite of my king dog.
You say king dog?
King dog?
Is that what you said?
What?
Don't let hunger bully you. Get yourself a king dog, and you too can become a super hunger fighter.
Secondhand Heroes and Home for Wayward Villains is a comic book shop and gaming store that also features Magic the Gathering and D&D. Located at 18184 Leesville Road in Evington, Virginia, Secondhand Heroes is your one-stop shop for you to get your nerd on. Open 7 days a week at 11 a.m. They don't close until the dice stop rolling. They buy, sell, trade, barter, and haggle, specializing in collectible toys, both vintage and modern, comics, Magic the Gathering, video games, console, and arcade cabinets to play, all set to free play. Host your game night with us, Monday night D&D video game competitions, and so much more. Something for the collector and gamer in us all. Call 434-317-0121 or shoot us an email with any questions to secondhandheroesva@gmail.com. Note, secondhandheroesva@gmail.com. That's 2ND, handheroesva@gmail.com. Come game with us.
So, yeah, you went from, like I said, South Atlantic, and I believe it was Japan, right? You did a tour with Japan. With AIWF in Japan with Ivan, and like you said, you got to meet Russell Rip Rogers over there.
Rip Rogers, Ricky Santana, Vic Steamboat, Mr. Pogo, and a couple of the top Japanese talents' names. And I can't remember one of the guys that worked for that promotion was a Japanese guy, and he bleached his hair blonde. I can't remember his name. I think we were there 2 weeks or something, and I just can't remember all the guys' names, all the Japanese guys' names.
Right. What was it like working with Vic Steamboat? It's not a name you hear often anymore, which is a shame because he's not very public these days.
I haven't seen him since that tour, and but he was, from what I recall, he was very light. I mean, it wasn't anything stiff or abrasive or anything of that nature. And we did what the promotion wanted, and I think the promoter was Victor Quinones. He was the U.S. side, and I don't know who the Japanese side was. But yeah, Vic was. I think I worked him 2 or 3 times. Made the the Japanese magazines came out once a week, and there were 3 or 4 of them. Made all those magazines several times. With one in particular, Vic was giving me a really nice drop kick, and one of those photographs made it in there, which I was kind of proud of. Worked the headhunters over there at Budokan, and that was a hell of a match. I think that's what you showed clips of. I think
the clip that it looked like you tore one of the benches off and threw it at one of them.
Yeah, there wasn't anything I couldn't tear up. It's just, hell, I was 6'2", 185 pounds in 8th grade. I'm 6'2", 300 pounds now. So,
right. Of course, then you guys went to Smoky Mountain and competed.
Yeah, we did some other. We did ECW after that, and I loved ECW. I worked Stan Hansen, Tito Santana, worked Road Warrior Hawk up there. We worked the headhunters up there. I did a match. I went over on Sandman. We did a squash match, and I can't remember the guys' names. There's 2 small guys. I can't remember their names. And that video,
I saw it was Glenn Osborne. He wore face paint and Herb Rosento or something like that.
Yeah, he was supposedly Portuguese or something.
Yeah, he was very small. Yeah,
he was very small. I actually didn't like working him because he was so small. It just didn't feel right to me. And I remember one time we're standing at the curtain, and I'm working Hanson, and Ivan comes up to me and he says, "Be careful." And I looked at him and I'm like, "What the hell are you saying?" He's never said "be careful" to me before. And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, he can't see." And I said, "Well, who the hell can't see?" And he said, "Stan." He said, "When he takes those glasses off, he can't see." And so he said, when he calls the lariat or the clothesline, he said, "You better duck." because he'll rip your head off. Well, I didn't mind. I mean, I liked it. Hell, I took Warlord's clothesline, and that was like running into a literally. Terry was like running into a Mack truck. But oh yeah, so I worked Salvador Balomo up there as well. He was a hoot. I mean, a hoot. I worked in Herb Abrams' UWF. I worked Pistol Pez Watley, and Pez was awesome. He led me. It was great. I mean, it was just great. So yeah, I don't remember what you were asking about Vic. It was easy with Vic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Ricky Santana was called. He was called Ricky Santana, and he was also called the Iceman over there as well.
Okay, that was him. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I came across that, but I didn't. I wasn't sure who that was. I didn't.
Are we kayfabing?
No, not by any stretch.
Doesn't kayfabe work at the truck stop on Route 10? Isn't she a waitress?
So, what were your impressions of working Smoky Mountain and Jim Cornette and stuff?
Cornette was living in Charlotte at the time.
Okay.
Stan Lane had become one of my very best friends. He and I ran the roads together. Subsequently, we morphed into another gig that I'll talk about later. That he and I both used our personalities in that gig. But we are at Ivan's training camp, and one day I get there, and they are setting up another ring behind the building, outside the building. They're setting another ring up on the ground, and I'm thinking, well, this is kind of peculiar. I couldn't understand what they're doing, and so then Cornette pulls up, and I had never met Jim, but I knew who he was, and he introduces himself and kind of looks me up and down and blah, blah, blah. Well, and he gets into the trunk of his car and he pulls out some ring aprons. Well, the ring aprons, if I recall correctly, said Smoky Mountain on them. And I think they were test fitting them to the ring and the canvas to the ring that was going to be used subsequently in the new Smoky Mountain territory. Well, I really didn't put it together at the time because I was not knowledgeable or green or was not informed adequately. But Ivan and I were to become the Smoky Mountain heel tag team, because Lane had not procured a partner, and he was still doing he started off doing singles over there. And so we started working for Cornette vis-a-vis Bobby Fulton's Big Time Wrestling, which was, we did matches all over the Southeast in Ohio for Big Time Wrestling Bobby Fulton. And then when Smoky Mountain came around, the Fantastics were the first babyface tag team, and then we were the first heel tag team, and we had already wrestled the Fantastics dozens of times all over the Southeast in Ohio. So we had a match, and we were comfortable with each other working a match, and Bobby was comfortable knowing that he could lay the punches in as hard as he wanted, and know that we weren't going to lay him in as hard as we wanted, and we would make the Fantastic shine, and to ultimately the demise of me and Ivan eventually, contractually with Cornette. But working the towns for Cornette was great, because Jim, in my opinion, you can't get a cup of coffee with it, but Jim is the greatest wrestling mind and promoter of all time, with every variable included. Or what I'm saying? There's other great promoters. There, P.T. Barnum, there's other great minds, Albert Einstein. There's other great wrestlers, Dick the Bruiser. superstar Billy Graham. But if you're going to put all that together and create a bionic man, that would be Cornette. And he can still tell you to this day what houses drew 40 years ago.
Yes.
Which is, it's he's not a savant. He's not handicapped mentally in a stretch, but it's just. But so we were let go by Smokey, and I think the reason we were let go was because of me, because of something that happened in another territory, and that territory was going to use the videotapes of Cornette's Smoky Mountain in their territory on their little TV station they had. And I was certainly not going to allow somebody to profit off of my name in any capacity after they had let me go for something that was not true. And I refused to sign the sheet the night in Morristown, Tennessee, I think it was. Cornette could tell you better. Tommy Young came to me and asked me to sign the sheet, and I said, I'm not signing it. And he kind of was startled because everybody signed it. Everybody signed it without even forethought. I said, I'm not signing it. And he said, why? And I said, and then Cornette came to me and, kind of, he wasn't in an uproar or a huff, but he came over there with Killer Cox or Mean Mark Cox or something like that.
Carl Cox?
No, it wasn't Carl Cox. This kid was Mark Cox, Mean Mark Cox or something like that. And he came over there and that kid kind of postured standing behind Cornette. And I was standing there and I'm thinking, well, who the hell is this guy posturing? I mean, I'm a professional. I'm not going to fight anybody over anything because all that does is, lend yourself to litigation. And Jim said, just go ahead and sign it. Just go ahead and sign it. So I signed it. We worked that night. We worked the show that night. And next thing I know, we weren't getting bookings after that. So, Jim, and then Stan got, I think,
Tom Pritchard.
Yeah. Tom came in, and they were the Heavenly Bodies. And then Stan got released for some reason. I don't know why. I don't remember why. I don't recall Stan ever discussing it with me.
Did he get released? Is that when he went to WWF as a commentator?
That is, yeah, that's when he went to WWF as a commentator. Okay. But then Del Rio or somebody like that.
Jimmy Del Rey.
Who? Oh yeah, Del Rey, Jimmy Del Rey. Yeah. So he took over, and it was funny. That robe that Cornette had made, that thing for Stan, that thing was expensive, and I think it was the same gal that made Flair's robes, but she had this thing made for Lane, or he had this thing made for Lane, and it was a beautiful robe. But when Jimmy Del Rey got it, Jimmy was so short, it looked like an evening gown on him because it went all the way to the floor, and it was just funny when I saw it. I was like, damn, he's wearing Lane's hand-me-downs, because I don't think Cornette wanted to pay the $3,000 or $4,000 to get another robe made.
Yeah, I wouldn't either, but yeah.
But I love Smoky Mountain. Brian Lee, I worked Brian Lee. I worked for Ken Patera out in Utah a couple times. Worked the Sheik out there. I'm just saying all these places are bringing back different territories or different places that I worked and other names. I remember we were in the Knoxville Coliseum, and this guy came up in the elevator, and Ivan and I are in the elevator, and Ivan's WWF World Champion. Bottom line.
Yep.
Bottom line. I don't care how long he held the belt. I don't care who he dropped the belt to. I don't care who came behind him. He beat Bruno Sammartino, and somebody saw enough in the man to put the strap on him, and that's the way it is. So we're in the elevator going up in the Coliseum, to do, I don't know what we're doing, something. And this kid's in there, and he's all dressed. He's got all his stuff on, and he's got the same exact outfit as Bret Hart does. You know, the pink and black and white boots, and it's Bob Holly. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm looking down, I'm looking over him, and I'm thinking, you know, I couldn't figure out who this guy was. And Dutch Mantel is in the elevator, and he looks at me. I'd never seen the guy a day in my life, ever. Never met him, never spoke to him, never saw him on any of the championship wrestling I watched as a kid growing up in Indiana. And Dutch says to me, he grabbed his beard and he said, "I don't like you." And I'm like, okay, that's good. I'm like, you know, what's this all about? I mean, is he trying to get over on me in the little territory before? You know, I just never understood that. And after all, it is a work.
Right.
It wasn't like we were at weigh-ins in Lincoln, Nebraska, at the Bob Devaney Sports Center at the University of Nebraska, weighing in for the Grand National Wrestling Tournament. And a guy behind you, "I don't like you. I'm gonna kick your ass tonight on the mat." You know, I just never could understand why Dutch said that, and he had never met me. So, nevertheless, that was Smoky Mountain. But I liked, you know, we ran Kentucky, Virginia, Tennessee, West Virginia. I don't think I worked for them in North Carolina any. I don't recall them working in North Carolina. But we did the Knoxville Civic Center, or excuse me, the Knoxville Arena, where the Knoxville Cherokees, the IHL or ECHL hockey team played, and I met the girl, the only girl to ever play in the NHL. She played for the Tampa Bay Lightning as a goalie. Her name was Mayon Rayon, and she played in Knoxville. I met her over there. So that was a little bit of a side note.
So you mentioned working Herb Abrams' UWF, which is, you know, still to this day, a lot of people talk about it. I watched it as a kid. Well, I wouldn't even say I was a kid. I was probably I was in high school. It was on TV Saturdays.
Yeah.
I watched at that time period. I watched any wrestling that came on TV. You know, obviously you mentioned earlier meeting Pistol Pez Watley.
Yeah.
Did you have any interactions with Herb himself? Everybody's got a story, so.
Yeah. I gotta figure out how I'm going to give this delivery. Everybody has heard a Herb story about the excesses in his life.
Yes.
We get to Spartanburg, South Carolina. It's either Spartanburg. We did Spartanburg, Greenville, and Gastonia for them. And I want to say it was Spartanburg. It was Ivan and myself. And Pez was on the show. I want to say Boogie Woogie was on the show.
He was there. There was a lot of guys which coincidentally had worked the South Atlantic territory as well. Guys like Helmut Hessler was a Chuck.
Yeah,
Bryant.
Chuck Coates. Chuck Smith was there as Helmut Hessler. Boogie Woogie was there. Cowboy Bob Orton was there.
Yep.
Paul. That's the first time I met Paul Orndorff. Paul and I got along really well. Later, he was at WCW when I was down there. But God, I don't know if I can say this or not. Two of the aforementioned superstars, we walk into the dressing room. Ivan's greeting everybody. Everybody's putting Ivan over real strong. And I kind of walk off to the side to go find a bathroom. And so I walk in a door and open the door up. It's unlocked. And two of the aforementioned superstars are in there with Herb, little bitty Herb. Uh,
I think I got it.
yeah, they were snorting. I mean,
If everybody knows anything
it
about
looked like the snuff. It looked like the Snuffleupagus from the Grinch. I'm gonna tell you something. They were going to town, and hey, yeah, I just kind of looked at it and I was like, okay, whatever. And I guess it's kind of like when I want to say it was Dusty Wolf walked in on Lanny Poffo and somebody else doing a crisscross with each other. And I'll leave that to your imagination. I think it was Dusty told me that story. So, or maybe it was Leo Burke, Leo the Beast. I worked with Leo and the kid they called Kurgan, the Canadian Giant. I worked with them overseas, in India, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, so I will say one thing. You didn't have to you did not have to haggle with Herb about the money. Really? It was always there. It was always cash. He had no issue with that. And I think because, I don't know where he got it from. I heard that he had inherited, a lot of money. I don't know. I wasn't there at the probate distribution of somebody's estate, but Herb was Herb, and he was very eccentric.
Yes. Yeah.
And was not shy to share in the indulgence either.
It sounds like the opposite of what a lot of people say is that sometimes they would get a check and then the check would bounce and stuff.
From Herb?
Yeah.
No, I never got a check. I got paid cash. Always.
Interesting.
Now one of the forementioned, and I mean forementioned promoters that I worked for still owes me money. But, hey, things happen. I understand that. So, nevertheless.
What about you did mention off air prior conversation that we had not long ago, and I saw online you did work some WCW for a little while.
Yeah, I was with WCW for about a year.
Okay.
Ivan and I went to Anderson, South Carolina, and they were doing TV in Anderson. So I went down there to meet Dusty. And it was kind of an odd situation because Doug Dillinger, who never laced a pair of boots up a day in his life, was working the quote unquote security for WCW. And so we go in the back, and Doug meets us, and I'm behind Ivan. Ivan's out front. And Doug won't let us in. And I'm thinking, well, who the hell's this son of a bitch not letting Ivan Koloff into a damn dressing room or the backstage area at an event? This is Ivan Koloff. Doug Dillinger was a stooge, a mark, a snitch for the Charlotte Police Department, who just happened to, be in the right place when Turner bought Crockett out and got him a job and blah, blah, blah. So we finally got to meet with Dusty, and Dusty came out and put a little show on for us and blah, blah, blah with the voice and all that shit. And basically said he had no interest in using me. But that was because I feel that somebody had Dusty's ear that did not want me to utilize the Koloff name in WCW. And I'm not going to get into that. But subsequently, we went back down to Atlanta because Ole had the book. And somehow Ole contacted Ivan and said, hey, come down here to... No. I know exactly what it was. No, I'm sorry. Ole had the book. Ivan got booked on Slamboree, one of the Legends deals at the old Omni.
Yeah, they led reunion thing they used to do for the first couple of years.
Yes, wrestling reunion or something like that. And so Ivan was on that card. Harley was there. Sting was there. That's where I first met Sting. Sid was there. Kevin Nash was there.
Might
Everybody
have
was.
been three-ish, maybe, because that might have been the first year and they had everybody, and they had some legends matches. And if I remember, my brain's a little foggy, but Ivan
They
might
had
have.
a legends. They had a legends battle royal.
Yeah.
Lou Thez was there. Thunderbolt Patterson was there because his son was in the power plant with me. So I met Ole there briefly because it was a pay-per-view, and so it was pretty hectic.
Right.
I can't remember all the other ones I met. I saw Bobby Eaton. Bobby was a great guy to me. I don't remember if Flair was there or not. He may have been up in the New York territory. I don't remember. But so Ivan said, like the next week, hey, we need to go back to Atlanta. Ole wants to meet you. Ole was the booker. Ole had an office up there in the tower, CNN Tower, Peachtree Tower, whatever the hell it's called. So we go in and meet Ole, and I stick my hand out as I was taught to do as a young man when you're introduced to anybody. And so I reached across Ole's desk. I reached to him across his desk, and he stood up and shook my hand. And so my thighs were kind of against the front of his desk, and he tried to tug on me a little bit. Well, hell, I just pulled him back, and I damn near pulled him across his desk. And Ivan's like, oh, he loves that shit. Ole was kind of rah, 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 all this. And Ivan later on said, oh, he loved that shit when you did that. So Ole hired me. But there was something going on, I don't know, from whoever was above Ole or something, that any new talent that had not come from the other organization, they had to be trained at the power plant. And so Ole said, well, you got to go to the power plant. And I said, what the hell's the power plant? And he said, well, it's our training center. I said, I was at the Olympic train. I said, the only training center I know is the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, which I was at 3 years in a row when I was in high school. And so I did the power plant, went down there, a couple guys in there. One didn't have any boots on, weren't going barefooted. One of them about 5'5", gassed out of his head. All they were doing was there was a bunch of chumps in there that were trying out, guys that should never have even considered. And all they were doing, and I understand what they were doing, they were blowing guys up just to get rid of them.
Right.
1,000 free squats to start, then running the rope for hours. It seemed like hours. Never taught anything. Never taught you any technique. Never taught you any psychology. Greg Gagne came down there a couple times and said, hey, I've heard of you through a friend of mine by the name of Brad Rangans, because Brad was a Olympic, he placed fourth in the 76 Olympics, and I think in the 75 or 77 Worlds, he placed third in Greco. And it was unheard of in Greco for an American at that time to place. It was all Soviet Union or Soviet bloc in Greco. But Greg came down there, and he was working with the office in some capacity. I don't know what. And he was great to me. Just professional, hospitable, just really a top-notch guy. And then Jody Hamilton came down there. And I knew who Jody was because I had talked to him originally when I wanted to get into the business, after I had talked to Frenchie and found out Andre wasn't going to be home. So I called WCW. I made some calls to directory assistants and Turner Broadcasting and WTBS, and I got in touch with Jody Hamilton. And so Jody came down there to the power plant, had a nice long discussion with him, blah, 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 and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I was still doing these things, and I was still making independent shots on the Fridays and Saturdays, doing what I could, living in a hotel down there in Atlanta by myself, still traveling, making independent shots with Ivan, catching up with him in Virginia, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, St. Louis, Las Vegas, wherever we had to go. And so I did a house show in Charlotte with the A team. It was Rude, Sting. I want to say Flair was on the card, but I'm not positive. Arn, Tully, Lex. No, Lex wasn't, because Lex was on the WWF card one time when I was with them, did a tryout with them. It was just the A team of WCW. And so I wrestled in Charlotte at the Coliseum where the Hornets played basketball. I wrestled that guy by the name of Van Hammer.
Yep.
Big, tall, lean, racy, crazy, bushy blonde hair.
He looked like Sammy Hagar.
Yeah, did a Sammy Hagar rock and roll gimmick, but he was huge. He was 6'6". He was a big guy, and he was put together. He was built like a Greek god. I'm going to tell you, this kid was put together. This guy was put together. And so Grizzly Smith. Oh, by the way, I wrestled Jake the Snake in Oklahoma City one time. But Grizzly Smith was the road agent, or he was the road agent on the card, and just as nice as could be to me. Grizz was. And I don't know if it was just because he was nice to me, because I was not boisterous at the time. I wasn't over the top, or it was the respect for Ivan, and maybe he knew, I just don't know. But nevertheless, Grizz was good to me, contrary to the horrific stories that I have heard. So I did we're standing there, and Van Hammer's standing there with me, and Grizz looked at him and said, you boys are working each other. And Grizz, I was big. I was a big, thick guy. And Grizz looked at Hammer and said, you think you can get him up and do your finish? Which his finish was a slingshot suplex off the, he'd pick me up and bounce me off the top rope, my legs off the top rope, and bring me back. And he said, yeah, I can get him up. Well, he did. He got me up, and I went up for him, and we did his finish, and 1, 2, 3, and blah, blah, blah. And, I just, nothing ever happened, and I still had to eat. I still had other commitments with independence, and I never got a call back from them. So nobody gave me heads up either way. And shortly after that, no, we were back doing TV. We went to center stage, and there was a kid, big ass kid. He was the bodyguard for Diamond Dallas. And I want to say his name was Max Muscle or something like that.
Sounds familiar. Yeah.
He was big. He was huge. He was my training partner in my workout partner in the power plant. All the other guys that were in the power plant, none of them, they didn't invite any of them to center stage for the TV taping. So me and the kid from Baltimore, Max Payne or Max Muscle, we get there, and we're met by Doug Dillinger. And so we go to the back, and we're going to the back, and he said, oh, no. He said, you two got to go up there and sit up there in those top seats up there in the studio with all the fans, with the marks. And so we're sitting up there, and everybody's looking around, and they think that I'm the other nephew. Okay. They think I'm Nikita. And they're all saying, why is Nikita up here? Blah, 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 blah. And I said to myself, fuck this. I said, I'm not going to be subjected to this. I'm not going to be treated by a guy that's a snitch for the police department as some kind of damn, hell, I'd already been in the business 2 years on the road with Ivan Koloff, regardless of his past, regardless of the man's demons. And not a single one of us don't have those. All of us have that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for them to put me up there in those seats to watch the matches like a mark, I got up and left. I left center stage. I got my black Nissan Maxima that I had at the time, And I drove back to the hotel. I never heard back from him ever. But right after that, I mean, like 2 or 3 days. See, Bischoff was there. I saw Bischoff down there at center stage, and he was talking to Barry Windham about what I have no idea. But I saw Bischoff. That was the first time I saw him. But Stan Lane had told me about who Bischoff was and about how Bischoff got into the AWA by being a quote unquote coffee boy for Vern, or errand boy for Vern. And he was selling ninja suits and David Carradine Kung Fu Master Death Stars out of the trunk of his car and shit. And he got into AWA that way, and then got into WCW and weeded them all out, and then got the book, and then everybody got fired. And so that was just shortly after I was with Ole. And Ole got fired, and then Bischoff came in. So obviously Eric Bischoff had different plans for the direction of WCW. And fortunately for him and his bank account, it worked.
It did.
It worked.
Yeah.
It worked. Because he went head to head with the god of the business, and he beat him for 82 weeks or whatever it was.
Yep. He did.
Secondhand Heroes and Home for Wayward Villains is a comic book shop and gaming store that also features Magic the Gathering and D&D. Located at 18184 Leesville Road in Evanston, Virginia, Secondhand Heroes is your one-stop shop for you to get your nerd on. Open 7 days a week at 11 a.m. They don't close until the dice stop rolling. They buy, sell, trade, barter, and haggle, specializing in collectible toys, both vintage and modern, comics, Magic the Gathering, video games, console, and arcade cabinets to play, all set to free play. Host your game night with us. Monday night D&D video game competitions, and so much more. Something for the collector and gamer in us all. Call 434-317-0121 or shoot us an email with any questions to secondhandheroesva@gmail.com. Note, secondhandheroesva@gmail.com. That's 2ND, handheroesva@gmail.com. Come game with us.
It's AIWF. Wanna see the best wrestling? Where to connect? The squared circle, the place you have to earn your respect. So get right with the program or you'll get left. AIWF across the US and all over the globe. We are live and direct. So tune and see who wins and who suffer the loss. This match just got you over one.
You did do a little bit for the WWF as well.
Yeah. Stan got me a tryout. Stan Lane, thank you. Got me a tryout through I think Jim Ross. I did the first night, Canton, Ohio, and there was another kid that was on the card doing the tryouts, dark matches. We did Canton, Cleveland, Erie, and Buffalo, I think. There was another kid on the card doing tryouts, and he had been with WCW, and his brother was with WCW, and his brother wrestled as, I think this is how it goes, PN News.
Okay.
The guy wrestled at PN.
Yeah.
And so the guy that tried out, I think his name was Mike Halleck. I'm not positive, but I think. I don't remember the name. I don't know. But I was always told that he was PN News's brother. And he had the same body type, very same body type. And if I recall, he looked like him. After Canton, I worked 2 dark matches in Canton. And we were in Cleveland the next night, I think it was. Luna Vachon came to me and said, the night of the next show. And she said, congratulations. And she was nice to me. Luna was great. Oh, and I worked her husband, Gangrel several times down in Florida. Wrestled the Harris brothers down in Florida, Ron and Don. They were big bastards. But Luna came to me and said, "Congratulations." And Yoko was sitting there. And see, I knew Yoko through Alpha, and Alpha loved me. Alpha loved me. Why? I don't know. But that man, he really liked me big time. So Yoko was sitting there, and Ronnie and I were bullshitting with each other. He was eating like 10 Chinese entrees and like 40 egg rolls and 10 of those cardboard tubs of lo mein. I've never seen anybody eat as much as he did. But we're sitting there bullshitting, and Luna said, "Congratulations." And I said, "On what?" She said, "They're going to hire you." I said, "Who's they and for what?" She said, "They're hiring you with a 6-figure contract based on your match last night." I said, "Well, I don't know anything about it." Well, I didn't work that night. The other kid worked. Then the next night we're in Erie, and one of the road agents made a pass at me. And it wasn't the one that you would think. It was another one. Because we were sitting in the locker room, and Shawn Michaels came up to me and said, "Hey, Vladimir, let me use some of your shampoo." I'm like, "Duh." He was messing with me. So Shawn went into the shower and was in there showering. He showered before the matches, which is, that's good. Unlike some guys didn't shower and some guys didn't wash their gear. Shawn did. So he's in there showering in full view of basically everybody in the locker room. And the road agent that I'm referencing that did not make a pass at me, he came in specifically and sat in the room to where he could watch Shawn take a shower. Well, was that a strategic move? Absolutely. It was job security. The performance was. But the other road agent made a pass at me later on. And I'm not of that persuasion. I'm just not. And I'm thinking, really? 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 Even Cornette was up there where at the monitors backstage, and he was telling everybody in Canton or Akron, whichever it was, it was Canton. He said, "You guys got to watch this guy, the way he moves in the ring, the way he just does everything." And he's talking about me. And I appreciated that. Even Cornette, he even said that after the deal with Smoky Mountain, it seemed like, if that timeline matches up. So I did a couple shows with them and then never heard back. And I never respected the guy that was a referee in junior varsity girls basketball in Oklahoma. I never respected that guy. I just kind of felt like that right place at right time and rose to a self-anointed position of self-imposed anointment. I just never respected that because, again, they had never put boots on themselves. They had been, well, okay, you're the next one in line, do the interview. And then they started gaining power and gaining traction and never knew what it was to, put boots on and get your head split open and get a hernia in the match in the ring, to tear your hamstring in the ring, tear your pec in the ring. Even Mr. McMahon blew out his quads. Mm-hmm. And that says something. Yeah. At least he was willing to do that. But some of these guys, I just never. Even Jim Cornette busted his ass falling off that scaffolding with Stan, Bobby, and Joe and Mike, scared to death. That's where the respect comes from. but another, I wasn't taught. I don't know, maybe if it was another day, a different time. Um, I just never had enough time on the road in a specific territory. Luthez said that to me. Bruno Sammartino said that to me. Dominic DiNucci said that to me. Walter Kowalski said that to me. John Tolo said, kid, if you had come along in the 80s, it'd have been a whole different story. He said it probably would have been a different gimmick. But, whatever. It was what it was. And, Ivan had his issues. We all had issues. Everybody has issues. It was Ivan and I were up and down the road, overseas, all over the damn place, all the time. It was just the way it was. So,
Yeah. Sorry, I'd have to edit that part out.
no
Kind of
problem.
like it was definitely I was always interested in I always enjoyed watching you. When I first discovered you in South Atlantic, and then saw you in Smoky Mountain as well and stuff. And obviously, it's like that's the kind of wrestling that I like even today. I like that old more Southern style professional wrestling, where it's more actual wrestling based.
I was kind of in the training. I was kind of in a conflicted camp as far as Ivan teaching me the Ivan Koloff way to do things, the Don Kernodle way to do things, the ways that they taught Nikita not to sell, but just to register. I was taught that by Ivan. But then it was conflicted by the guy that we were working for in the beginning, Bobby Fulton, to where Bobby wanted me to sell like hell for him. Bobby was small in stature. He could move he was fast, but if you locked up with him and he felt any type of pressure, he was screaming. But then on the other hand, he wanted to lay it in where you're like, damn, he just potatoed me. And then if you did anything with any degree of snugness, oh, he was going ballistic. I mean, it's like I worked Wahoo. I bet you I worked Wahoo 100 times. And the chief was top shelf. But I remember one time Ivan and I were working him and Chief Jay Eagle. And so Wahoo, he's chopping the hell out of me. I mean, he's laying them in. I've been chopped by a lot of people. And he hits me a couple times, and I'm thinking, this son of a bitch is laying them in on me. So I broke away from him, fought out of it. I went over to Ivan, and I said, that son of a bitch is hitting me. And Ivan said, hit him back. So I marched my big butt over there, and I grabbed him and tossed him into the corner. And I hit him. I mean, I don't know if you can see how big my hands are.
Yep.
I wear a size 22 ring on this finger. My Masonic, I'm a Freemason. I'm a Scottish Rite also, 32nd degree Freemason. My ring is a size 22. So I reached. I had Wahoo. I had him opened up with my left hand on his chin or under his chin, opening him up so I didn't hit him in the chin. And so he's back like this. And I reached back with my right hand and I hit him as hard as I could with my right hand. And it hurt my hand. I hit him so hard. And he came to Ivan afterwards and he said, don't ever let that overgrown nephew of yours hit me again. And Ivan said, well, then you don't hit him. So, yeah, but I like the chief. The chief was a good guy, real good guy. Yeah.
So now I want to know is what is Vladimir Koloff up to today?
I own a small farm here in North Carolina where I live. I do not have cattle, specifically Texas Longhorns, anymore. I got out of that business about 10 years ago. I got really, really, really deathly sick. I had septic staph infection, and I went septic, and I spent 38 days in the hospital. No, I'm sorry. Back that up. I spent 47 days in the hospital. I lost 30 of those in a recovery unit, 17 of those days in ICU. I lost the use of my left leg because I had a couple torn muscles in my left hip, a iliopsoas and a piriforma, and that came from wrestling. But I had scar tissue in there, and evidently the sepsis had settled for whatever reason, I don't know, in that scar tissue, and it made the scar tissue bigger for some reason, and that impinged the use of from my left knee down is numb. So I had to get out of the cattle business because I couldn't walk. I had to learn how to walk again. And if you see me walk now, I walk with a slightly abbreviated gait because of the left leg. I can't run. There's no way I could run. I just can't run because I can't lift the leg up. And then I had a farming accident about 8 years ago. I cut my right big toe off in a farming accident, had it surgically reattached. And then 10 weeks, 2 weeks after, 10 days, 2 weeks after that, my left Achilles tendon blew out totally. So I had to have it reconstructed. So I had casts on both legs for 12 weeks consecutively, which was a pain in the ass trying to navigate the farm and be on a roller and subsequently crutches and a walker and blah, blah, blah. So I still farm. I take care of my house, take care of my yard. I still have livestock. I have exhibition show chickens, which I have had since I was in second grade. I take care of my 88-year-old mother daily, who is a cancer survivor, a heart surgery survivor, an appendix and gallbladder removal survivor, 2 broken hips, 9 weeks apart survivor, not from a fall, from a spontaneous fracture, shingles, cancer behind her right eye on optical nerve 4 and 5, the death of my younger brother, all in the last 5 years. That's happened to her.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. And so I take care of her. So yeah, my days are full. I have been, as of late, kind of coincidentally, that our interview is basically on the eve of one of the largest. I think it's the largest in the country. I don't know of anything else bigger, other than maybe one of the big deals that the New York company runs now. But one of the biggest autograph appearance signings, et cetera, for professional wrestling, which is WrestleCade in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, which is 55 miles east of where I live. It's owned and operated by a young man by the name of Tracy Myers, who is an extremely successful automobile broker. That event, WrestleCade, is coming up this coming Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with at least 200 legends, Hall of Famers, superstars, half a stars like me, up and coming, newcomers, wannabes, men, women, young men, young ladies are going to be there signing autographs and doing photo opportunities. So I'll be doing that. But that has taken place because back in late May, early June, back in late March or early April, I was contacted by a sports memorabilia trading card promoter to do a show in Tennessee about 5 hours from where I live. And I haven't done anything since I retired other than farm, and that's it. I made one wrestling appearance, and I wrestled, and it was, I'm sorry, I've made two. One of them was with Mo from Men on the Mission, Bobby, who was a friend of mine. Mo and Mabel were friends of mine in my early career. I rode the roads with those boys a lot, up and down. That's where I was working for a promoter by the name of Clement Fields down in Charleston, and Bobby and Nell, Big Nell, Mabel were on the car, and I used to ride with those guys in that van. And I never forget about it. I came out of the van and smelled like Jerry Curl. And I'd give him hell. I said, Russians are not supposed to smell like Jerry Curl, comrade. But so I worked for Mo at a promotion in South Carolina. And then there was another promoter with him who lives very close to me. And that guy, his name is Chad Bird. And Chad, his live-in significant other girlfriend is none other than Nicola Roberts' baby doll. So I worked for Chad on a show, 20 years ago, maybe. Way after my retirement. And Ricky and Robert were on there. Warlord and Barbarian were on. No, Barbarian was on there. Magnum TA was there. Had a great conversation with Magnum. I just can't remember everybody's on. And I wrestled that night and going through, and I hadn't been in the ring in years, decades. And I tripped going through the ropes. Damn near busted my ass, but I caught myself. But it was awful. I should never have taken the booking. So I haven't worked any shows, and once I retired. I didn't do anything else. And so this promoter in Tennessee asked me to come over and do a signing. And I said, well, I really don't want to, and blah, 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 and et cetera, et cetera. And he gave me a number, and I called a family member and said, hey, can you sit with Mom over the weekend, and blah, blah, blah. And so it has morphed into more bookings than I can take now. Promotion. And I don't mean promoters like wrestling promoters. I just mean these card memorabilia deals. And
Right.
so it's just, it's kind of great on one side, but then kind of distracting on the other, because I don't get as much done during the week on my farm or in my yard or in the house or anything else that I'm trying to conquer at the time, because I have to plan and make, arrangements to be gone, half the
Right.
day on Friday and all day on Saturday, and sometimes half the day on Sunday when I'm coming home. And I have found out, Rick, that just making the drive to Huntsville or Atlanta or Myrtle Beach or Norfolk or Roanoke or what have you, and then coming back, hell, the drive wears me out. And I used to drive all the time, all over the country, making shots, taking bumps, up all night, running the road,
Right.
doing what wrestlers did, so,
Not used to it anymore.
sir,
You're not used to it anymore. So.
no, not at all. But I see lots of people, and the kids have no clue who I am, none, zero. But I see lots of people that, obviously they remember Ivan. Right. Obviously they remember the greatness of Nikita, and the, Nikita was a, I call him a seismic, he was a seismic anomaly to me, because there was such a mystique put on him by the Crockett promotion, but he backed it up. He backed it up with the physique and with kayfabe, from the litigious portion of the name, so to speak. And then so the people were like, oh my God, I remember Nikita doing this, and this, and Ivan doing this, and this. And I remember you doing some things, but man, those Russians, you guys were just kicking each other's ass, kicking everybody's asses. And it wasn't just me, and it wasn't just Ivan and Nikita. It was Boris and Boris Zukov and who was Alex Smirnov. It was Nikolai Volkov. It was Big Al Blake. It was Vladimir Pietrov. You know, any of the Russians, any of the big guys. Now, I'm not talking about the Russians that were under the hoods, you know, under the mask and all that, because there were a lot of those, and there's even one guy now that uses my name, my Vladimir Koloff name, down on the Gulf Coast, and he wears a mask and wears a hood and wears a bodysuit, and I've consulted with counsel in North Carolina, in Louisiana, and in Texas. And the counsel in Texas is a retired Supreme Court justice of Texas, and I have to prove that they're causing me financial damages, or this guy is, by using my name, and he's not making any money. So, but it is kind of distracting that when somebody asks me, "Oh yeah, we saw videos of you. You're a great big roly-poly heavy-set guy, wears a mask and a full bodysuit." And I said, "No, that's not me." I said, "I never wore a mask. I wear a black singlet with a hammer and sickle on it, and I'm built like a damn 300-pound gorilla. That's me." So it, you know, so I never gave any credibility ever throughout the career with anybody that was under a hood as a Russian. It was just two guys they put together and put the legend Paul Jones with, and those were his masked Russian assassins or what have you.
I think one was Jack Victory and one was the Angel of Death, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Yep.
You're exactly right.
And I love both of those guys as wrestlers. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, why wouldn't you put two extremely talented ring workers in that slot and just have them portray somebody that was under a hood with the persona? They didn't have to do it. There was no speaking role. They just had to have the hammer and sickle on it, and then their skills as wrestlers carried them the rest of the way. So,
anyways, I want to say thank you today for joining me and having this conversation. I had a blast talking to you today and learning about your career.
well, I appreciate it. I'm sitting in my computer chair. That's why I'm moving around. It's killing my back, but I've enjoyed this. I want to thank you for reaching out to me a month ago or whatever it was. I hope that the contacts that I have given you previously in regards to having one other big time legend from the past out of the AWA and WWF territories. I hope that comes to fruition. But yeah, I mean, I think your fans will love that.
My phone's open.
Yeah, I'm going to make a call and see if I can't prompt it. But you know, sometimes you don't push too hard.
Yeah.
But I've enjoyed it, and I hope your fans enjoy this. And if somebody wants to contact me, can I do a shameless plug?
100%, absolutely.
If somebody wants to contact me on Facebook, it's under my given name. It's under my birth name, Carl Richard Brantley. I am not on Facebook as Vladimir Koloff. That other guy that is the imposter, he has that handle, which I shouldn't even be acknowledging him. I think I'm on TikTok as of today. A friend of mine's wife put me on there, I think today, under Vladimir Koloff, the original or the OG or something like that. But if somebody wants to contact me through Facebook, Carl Richard Brantley, there's a picture of me kind of with my head cocked a little sideways, looking just like this. I'm not wearing the Ribera steakhouse shirt, which I love, by the way. They can contact me that way. And I do appearances still, card signings, card shows, memorabilia, philanthropic work. So, you know, whatever. I'm open. I do not sell feet pictures.
You sure? Not if it's a good enough offer?
Not even if it's from the agent of WWF that made the pass at me.
All right. Thank you very much.